Right, so today we're going to be neutralising an acid. So you have your core practical instruction sheet, and I'm going to show you the method. You should have read through the method yourself. You need to make sure you've designed a results table. So if you remember from reading, we're going to be adding small portions of calcium hydroxide 7 times to our acid, and we're going to be recording the pH as we go along the way. So something looking a little bit like this one that I have typed out here would be sensible. So we've got massive calcium hydroxide added along the top, and each time we've added 0.3, so we're 0.3 higher than previous one, and the pH of the mixture needs to be recorded. So I will move this back a little bit and make sure you guys can see what is going on. So we're going to measure out to start with 50 centimetres cubed of hydrochloric acid using the measuring cylinder. There we go. So we can, as a backup, use a dropping pipette. Let's try a dropping pipette in order to remove a little bit of the acid so that the meniscus sits bang on the line, and we know we have got our 50 centimetres cubed. Then we're going to transfer that to our glass beaker. So pour all of that into our glass beaker. Okay, so the next thing to do then is to record our initial pH. So if you see on your instructions and also on your results table that the first recording is when we've added no calcium hydroxide. So in order to do this, I have got strips of universal indicator paper along with the usual colour chart that you would expect. I have a glass rod that's going to transfer the drops, and so we can then take our beaker and put a drop of our acid just on one end of the strip so that we can reuse it for later solutions. And then if I bring, whoops, a daisy, put them all off. So if I bring that over, not surprisingly, we've just got acid in there, and it's a nice strong red. So we compare that with our colour chart, and then we decide what our starting pH is from there. So I'd say that agrees pretty well with pH 1 at the top there. So then could you please make sure you've recorded pH 1 in your results table against 0 grams of calcium hydroxide being added. So once we've done that, we need to switch the balance on and make sure it is zeroed. Okay, so we've got our balance over here. We're going to use a weighing boat, so we pop that onto the balance, and then we'll zero the reading there so that we can make sure we can measure out our 0.3 grams. I'm just going to put you down here while I take the lid off the calcium hydroxide. So we need to try and get precisely 0.3 grams, so do play around with this a little bit until you get the right amount, trying of course always to avoid splattering the top of the balance with calcium hydroxide. So what are we up to? 0.28, so I just need the tiniest wee extra bit. And a little bit more. That's 0.2, yeah, there we go, 0.3. Okay, so we are now on to instruction C. So we've measured out the 0.3 grams in our weighing boat, and then in D we're going to add our calcium hydroxide to our acid. So we've got that around our acid there. So we're going to add our calcium hydroxide to our acid here. So an acid plus a metal hydroxide, you can think about the products that are going to be formed there. And we are now going to stir this so that it is mixing well and reacting well with our acid. And then maybe give that a minute to do its thing so that it's neutralised some of the acid there. And then we need to do the same process of using the stirring rod to then transfer a drop of our solution. So we'll go back. We can recycle the same piece of litmus paper that we were, university paper that we were using before. So you can see what I'm doing. So we've got a drop on the end of my stirring rod here, and we'll put it a bit further down here. Now the instructions ask you then to wait 30 seconds so that we can see the kind of true development of the colour there, and then we're going to compare that with our results table, with our colour charts there, sorry. So looking at this, so in the middle we do have quite a green, but then towards the edges we've still got quite an orange if you look at the sides here. So we'll just watch it for 5 more seconds there, and then we'll see what we're going to decide. So the solution itself is going to be the bits that spread to the side. There are some of the solid calcium hydroxide particles that are still present as a solid in the solution. You might have noticed it was quite cloudy. So we're better looking at the edges rather than the centre of our spot there to see what this actual solution has ended up like. So I think looking at the edges of here, I would suggest, let me see how close I can bring that where you can still see it. I would suggest a pH of 5 for that one. Okay, so we'll look at the solution at the edge and we'll have a pH of 5. So what we then need to do is repeat the process, and we need to add another batch of the calcium hydroxide. So my balance is at 0 again. I've got a rough idea now of what 0.3 looks like, so I can add a little bit more than I did start with. So where are we up to now? 256. Little bit more. Don't think that even came off the spatula that time. 27. Is it going to tip out? Yep, there we go. So we've got the 0.3. Okay, so we then add our next portion in here. So pop that in. Give it a good old stir again. And then this time, I think I'll use a fresh piece of paper, so we're getting quite a lot on that other one. So bring this over so you can see. So if we put a drop now on here, so you can see this time we have a blue developing immediately in the middle. And remember, those solid particles that give the cloudiness, they're not going to be moving very much. So I'm kind of more interested in the colour around the edge, because those solid particles are just dumping calcium hydroxide straight onto the paper there. But can you see there's quite a green around the edge this time? So where it was quite orange around the edge before, it's most definitely green this time. So we can just watch this again just for a few more seconds and then decide where we're going to go for. I think it's a pretty bold green around the edge there, so I think I will go for a 7 on this one. Okay, so we've now in total added 0.6 grams, so we can put 7 down as our pH there. And then we just continue to repeat this each time, adding another 0.3 grams until we have all of our readings. So I'm not going to make you watch each one in addition, so I will just show you the results, and then you can copy all of these down and then you can work through the subsequent questions. So here's my overall set of results. So by the time we had added 1.2 grams, each further addition didn't change the colour of the indicator paper. So if we're adding more of our alkali and it's not actually changing the colour, what can that tell you about the neutralisation process? So jot down these results and then carry on working through the questions in order to discover more.